Mazel, morons. Welcome back to the Good Guys podcast. I'm sitting here with the Hollywood medium, but the real man in my life is my New York large. It's Ben Soffer.
Thank you, my sweet, sweet friend. Folks, we have an absolute treat today. He is a world-renowned medium, author, and TV star. He has a new Netflix show called Live from the Other Side. It's Tyler Henry. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. If you guys are listening on audio, you got to watch on YouTube because his hair is perfectly done. And Josh, I think that we need to go to his stylist or something.
It's giving River Phoenix. You know, Netflix actually said I have a mullet and it needs to get dealt with by the next episode. So that's what I'm doing after
Whoever said that to you is not our friend.
You know,
we're not touching this hair.
It's all right. It's giving 90s boy band.
Did you get hair feedback from Netflix?
I got hair feedback.
Sarandos is giving hair feedback?
It's okay. I got a hair transplant, so I was having kind of limited in my options. And so
oh
I
my
was
God, we have so much to talk about. Okay, start with the hair transplant.
Yes.
Say more.
It's like a chia pet. I mean, first it grows and then it all falls out, and then you think you are going through the ugly duckling experience. And then over 2 to 3 months, it gradually kind of fills in. They take it from the back of your head. And just kind of insert it with a turkey baster right there above your eyebrows.
Now, did we do turkey for this? Did we do medical tourism?
Josh, he went in the U.S.
We definitely went to Beverly Hills. Nothing wrong with turkey. I just didn't have the time to take off to jump time zones.
So did we go to Santiago, Chile?
Right.
Did we go to
BBL? No. We didn't go to Cuba.
Okay, so no Siberian hair transplant. Fine.
Not yet. Saving that for my 30s.
Judgmental.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
But I have to give you credit because usually what you see with hair transplant is it's more of a shorter kind of sustainable dude. You don't see such lush a head of salad like you have.
Well,
that lettuce.
A bag of lettuce.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was only the front, so it's still growing in, but you got to compensate. Distract them with the back so that they don't notice the front.
Now, it looks amazing. I never would have known, which I'm sure is the goal.
I appreciate it.
Meanwhile, I just shot a video, Josh, the one that I sent to you, where I'm cooking with Alex Garnaschelli, and the entire time you can see a bald spot in the middle of my head that I didn't even know I had.
Oof.
It's a mirror into
It's a
deeper realms.
Are you will you do a transplant, Ben?
I hope I don't need a transplant. I'm going to start just by taking the Nutrafol that we promote. I think it's a good place to start. See if that works. And if that doesn't work, then Tyler, I'm going to ask you for a recommendation.
I got you.
And we'll take it from there.
I got you. Every week, keep up. I'm going to look different every incarnation.
Or you could not be selfish, Ben, and we could turn it into a turkey travel vlog for the pod. And we go to Istanbul. We do the full hair transplant. I'll get a nose job. Fine. And we'll
we'll call it Trapped Abroad. That's what we'll call it. We'll go there for our procedures and we'll never get out.
Exactly. It's like Thanksgiving.
Cute. So Tyler, let's start at the beginning. Was it 10 years old when you realized you started to have these abilities?
Yeah, that's really kind of when it started, at least its most identifiable form. So, I woke up one night and just had a premonition of my grandmother's death. And at the time, I didn't even know what a premonition was or that could even happen.
I definitely know what a premonition is, but for the audience, tell them, what's a premonition?
Sure. Well, it really is just a knowingness of an event before it occurs. And, it does happen to people very often throughout their lives. And in my case, happened when I was just a kid. And it was about something very close to me, my best friend, my grandmother, and her death. And then, from there on, I just kind of would have these moments of knowingness throughout my life that were intuitive. And they would be specific. And when I would share them with people, they would validate that they were correct. But it wasn't until much later that I recognized that as an ability, versus something that was just kind of happening to me.
So knowing if you had obviously your grandma was still alive when you had the premonition.
Yes.
Did you say, Grandma, you might want to go try fentanyl or something? Go...
Get the morphine drip ready.
Go live a little.
Right, just go on the cruise.
You're on borrowed time, Grandma.
Sell the barn. Sell the farm. In this case, it was actually in the moments right before she passed. So I was at home with my mom, and my dad had actually been at my grandmother's home, and he was visiting her. And so I woke up and had this feeling that she was going to die momentarily. I wasn't even sure if she already had or if it was going to happen. It felt like a memory that hadn't occurred yet. So you can imagine how confusing that would be. And as I was explaining this to my mom, the phone rang. And as my mom picked it up, it was the news from my dad that he had just watched my grandmother die in front of him. So that really was kind of what changed everything. And, it was the before and after moment.
And so do these moments come to you now, or can you seek them out?
I definitely have certain things I do to facilitate these connections. I have certain processes like scribbling, which just kind of allows me to have a physical mechanism that allows me to mentally signal to turn on or to turn off. And in a lot of cultures and religions, you have kind of this back and forth or repetition-based practice that helps people get into altered states of consciousness. For some, that's the chanting, the beating of a drum, the movement of a rosary bead. There's something about that aspect that can kind of get a person into a different state, and that's what scribbling does for me.
Now, if I may ask, was your grandmother sick at the time?
She had not been in good health, and this had been going on for quite some time, about 2 to 3 years before she had passed. Her health had kind of been back and forth. We weren't sure if we were going to lose her. There were times where we came close to, and then she pulled through. So when it hit me, it was just in part very strange, but in part a bit of a relief to know in that moment that she wasn't, going to continue suffering. So it was very timely.
And when were you able to, at 10 years old, did you have any understanding of mediums, of psychics, any reference?
There really was no point of reference. Being a kid, my parents, I was raised Presbyterian, so we grew up in a Christian household, and I loved going to church and going to different churches. Yeah,
me too.
And so to be honest, conversations around ghosts and psychics and mediums and all of that just weren't part of our lexicon at home. It just wasn't a point of conversation. I never really, in my early days, heard the people around me talk disparagingly about the subject. I just never heard people talk about it.
Right.
So it was kind of a non-event.
What do the Jews feel about mediums, Ben? Rabbi Ben?
I was going to say, we are not Presbyterian. We're very Jewish, but all love to the Presbyterians.
Yes.
Shout out Presbyterian.
Shout out.
I was mentioning off camera, my mom definitely has and has always had this relationship with the other side, if you will. And she always associated it with animals. Like from the moment I can always remember from the beginning her saying, since my grandmother passed, like, oh, this butterfly is your grandmother, or geese were my grandfather. Like they would show up in moments where like geese shouldn't be here or butterflies shouldn't be here.
Right.
Or like, why is there a butterfly in your house on the Upper East Side? Like there are no butterflies in New York. So she was very connected through animals. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yes.
And we would joke with her like that. Not that it wasn't real, but like really, this is real. And considering it's been going on for 32 years, I can rest assured that it's definitely she's definitely not lying. There is a real relationship going on with her and my grandparents all the time, and they've been dead for 20 years.
Oh, that's beautiful. It sounds like there's an aspect to the importance of timing in those instances, right? Like, butterflies happen. We see animals even sometimes under unusual circumstances. But it's the fact that she's time and time again recognized those signs for what they are and found the meaning and identified that meaning that I think really lends significance.
It's the timing. It's like it'll be my grandmother's birthday and a butterfly will appear in her house.
Yes.
And it's unexplainable.
Yeah.
And I've always thought it was fascinating. I don't have that same relationship.
Yeah.
But we're so excited that you're on the podcast because we do believe in this, and it's just fascinating, and it's so cool to have a relationship like that.
Absolutely.
So jealous.
Ben, were you upset that your mother didn't have a premonition about Ozempic? Just so you could have started earlier.
She couldn't have had a premonition that I'd be an obese teen.
Same
Thanks,
here, babe.
Mom.
Same here.
Thanks, Mom. I am definitely salty. Definitely salty.
Tyler, can I ask, and to echo Ben, I'm really, I am a believer, and I think what you do is like important and really helpful. And can I like respectfully ask maybe some contrarian questions or two? Is that okay?
I love that. Yes, please.
So like, I remember in Religulous, the Bill Maher movie, someone who was very devout in their belief, Bill asked them to explain it a little more. And they said, well, what had happened was one time I asked for a sign from God about something going on in my life, and it started to rain.
Right.
And I knew that was my sign.
Yes.
And Bill said, of course, except sometimes it rains.
Mhm.
So maybe it's a sign, maybe not.
Right.
And like you talking about your grandmother and saying, she wasn't in great health and sadly grandparents pass. Like
Yes.
how do you correlate that exactly with that this was a specific moment in your life, this premonition, or that it just coincided with something that was really happening, which was she was pretty sick and older from what you're
Sure.
saying?
I think it may have been both.
Mm.
And that's kind of the dichotomy of the paranormal. Very often people are looking for a binary of, this or that. And very often within this world, it's kind of both. So yes, she was not in great health and there was a deterioration. But for me to know that she was going to die within about 30 seconds of the phone call, that is objectively just strange.
Right, a feeling.
And so from there, the catalyst that acted as, the series of events that opened up, is for me really what was where the value was, even more than that initial experience. I think when we talk about signs, right, there's this idea of objectivity versus subjectivity. So we have like things that are objective truths, things that we can quantify. But then when we talk about subjective experiences and the signs that people have, those are more meaning-based. They're more qualitative than quantitative.
Right.
So it's more about their qualities and what people get from these experiences than necessarily being able to pin them down in a lab, put a scientific name on them. As much as science, I believe, tries to quantify spirituality in one way or another, I just think of spirituality more akin to love and art. You can't quite quantify what those things mean on a large scale. What's different, for me might be different for you in our definitions of certain ineffable things.
So from 10 to let's say 18, what's the evolution of this ability? What does your life look like? Do you win most clairvoyant in the yearbook in high school?
Most likely to win the lottery.
Yeah, solid.
Yeah, no. From there, I would share these moments with other kids at school and eventually teachers. And, some people were super supportive. Other people were really frightened. I dealt with a lot of religious blowback, a lot of frustration.
Why do you think that is?
I just think it scares people on some level. For
religious people specifically?
It can. It's not. What's ironic with this is that I feel that what I do, if anything, validates the primary principle of most religions, which is that there's a continuity of life, beyond death. So if anything, I think I'm kind of like, pro-continuation. But some people see that and they think, no, that's either, a demon talking to the medium, which is a very common angle that certain groups of Christianity take. They equate it to something called necromancy, which was a sin in the Bible. And so I dealt with that even within my own denominations of having to deal with, misunderstanding. But the goal was always just to try to help people with the messages. I still to this day don't know to what extent the departed are involved in the messages themselves. I know I have a relationship with something. What that is and what that entails fully is still a mystery to me in a lot of ways.
This episode of the Good Guys Podcast is brought to you by our friends at LMNT. LMNT helps anyone stay hydrated without the sugar and other dodgy ingredients found in popular electrolyte and sports drinks. Electrolyte deficiency or imbalance can cause headaches, cramps, fatigue, brain fog, and weakness. So folks, introducing LMNT. LMNT is a zero-sugar electrolyte drink mix born from the growing body of research revealing that optimal health outcomes occur at sodium levels 2 to 3 times government recommendations. Each stick pack delivers a meaningful dose of electrolytes, free of sugar, artificial colors, or other dodgy ingredients. LMNT is formulated for anyone on a mission to restore health through hydration and is perfectly suited for athletes, folks who are fasting, or those following keto, low-carb, whole food, or paleo diets. Folks, we've been told forever, drink water, drink water, drink water, drink water. You're not drinking enough water. When in actuality, we should have been saying, are you good on electrolytes? It doesn't matter how much water you're drinking. Of course, it's good to drink water. But honestly, we're overhydrating and we don't have enough electrolytes to go with it. We're just peeing and peeing and peeing and peeing. I saw this video on TikTok the other day that showed when your pee is clear, did you know this? Clear pee, no good. That means you're overhydrated. I always thought that was good. We want that light yellow color. I digress, folks. You need electrolytes. I need electrolytes. And the best in the game for electrolytes is LMNT. LMNT. Get your electrolytes today. Folks, get your free LMNT Sample Pack with any purchase at drinklmnt.com/goodguys. This is the company I use. I love them. So folks, try new LMNT Sparkling as well, a bold 16-ounce can of electrolyte sparkling water. How fantastic, how convenient. Again, drinklmnt.com/goodguys. This episode of the Good Guys podcast is brought to you by PXG Golf Apparel. Folks, PXG is on a mission to create the most high-quality, high-performance golf clubs in the game. Well, they're bringing that same exact passion for excellence to their new line of apparel. And I gotta say, they nailed it. I absolutely love it. I got this hoodie, this pullover. Oh, it is fantastic. And we're coming in to, in my opinion, the greatest season of golf. That is fall golf in New York, or really anywhere in the Northeast. The weather is perfect. Today, folks, it's 72 degrees and sunny. Not too hot, not too cold. Could still wear shorts, but with that pullover, okay, because you want a long sleeve and shorts, or you could go with pants and a short sleeve. I like, make sure that you're staying warm, but not too warm. It's absolutely fantastic. And folks, their products are made with premium materials and technology designed for peak performance. These confidence-inspiring looks invite all-day play, taking you seamlessly from the course to the office to an evening event out. They are incredibly stylish, which is key when buying golf clothes, because, I want to wear golf pants all day long, and I don't want them to look like I'm wearing golf pants all day long. You want somewhere in the middle, okay? From golf trips to weekend getaways to upcoming holiday parties, these dynamic pieces add versatility and standout style to every occasion. So, folks, heard enough? I think their products are fantastic, and I think that you should try them out. Elevate your style on and off the course with the PXG's Fall/Winter 2024 collection. Head over to pxgapparel.com/goodguys and use code GOODGUYS at checkout to save 10% on all apparel. That's pxgapparel.com/goodguys. Code GOODGUYS to save 10% on apparel. pxgapparel.com/goodguys. Code GOODGUYS. Can you share an example of something that religious folks, when you were younger, can you share an example of something that they were upset with? What was something that you either heard or saw that you then told?
Yeah, well, I had a dear friend, my first girlfriend when I was in elementary school. I was a real stud. And, she was a couple grades older than me. And she was one of the first people that I confided about these weird things that I would sometimes see and know. And she ended up telling her very religious mother, who went to a different church, a little bit more of a conservative one, which I actually later also attended, I might add. And they actually ended up having a prayer circle. The mother held a prayer circle privately, not with my involvement, but her and a group of ladies got together and prayed for the soul of a 10, 11-year-old boy, I was at the time. Wow. And it got back to me. They told me that they had done this and that they were hoping that I find the way. And to have that happen at such a pivotal time when one is still forming their identity. And at 10 years old, you're still so vulnerable to the opinions of other people. And it was a great, blow to my self-esteem. But it also, I think, gave me the courage to be more of myself.
First of all, we've had plenty of prayer circles for me and Ben. We're sinners. We're Jews.
We are.
Listen, we rub people the wrong way. So mostly my mother praying that my cholesterol would go down. It hasn't, by the way. I just got to check. 227.
Debunked.
Not good. Not
Sorry,
good.
prayer.
I gotta
Too high, Josh. Too high.
No shit. I tried to get off my statins. I can't do it. My body said no.
There's no herbal. There's nothing we can do in the woods.
Yeah,
or
there's red yeast rice. This isn't about me, Ben. But
okay.
But what? Conversely, because you said you dabbled in that religion for a while. Is your ability a barrier of entry for you for organized religion?
I think it brings into a conversation of faith versus trust. In many ways, I think I was looking as a child for where my faith fit in, what my faith was, how I fit into this larger picture of my community.
Why
and
you
the
have
world.
this gift,
Sure.
maybe?
But even earlier, honestly, than 10, I was just a very deep child. I was very curious and interested in religion. But I found, if anything, it allowed me to have more of a reliance on an internal sense of spirituality, an internal sense of interconnectedness to other people, generally through acts of compassion, than necessarily having a faith in any external doctrine or dogma. So it kind of became more of an insular, more kind of inwardly focused shift in belief. At this point in my life, I kind of am past belief itself. I know a lot of people wonder, what is real and what does one believe? And I think I've gotten to a place where I realize it doesn't matter what I believe. Reality exists as it is. And on some level, I feel a deep sense of knowing, in what I've experienced, but I don't need to have beliefs or even around it to do what I do and to see the value in it.
Wow, that's a good name for your next special, Past Belief.
Past Belief. There you go. I love that.
Teddy Sarandos is going to call about that too, not just your hair.
I'm ready. On speed dial.
And can you, and if you can't, no problem, but like, I'm just so fascinated with like the specifics of any of these stories. Like, do you have a most memorable read or somebody that came to you and just sharing sort of that journey from meeting them to what you came to understand about them and their reaction to it?
Absolutely. There's been so many moments of transformation, whether it's filmed, whether it's off camera. I would say I had a really strange experience with my first grade teacher, of all people. She saw me later in life after I had started doing readings as a teenager. And she was surprised to see me one day, and I worked at this little bookstore, and she came in, and I told her that I did readings. And as I sat with her, she basically wanted to hear about her health. And I proceeded to tell her that I felt like there was an issue in the lower feminine system. I saw it very clearly. It felt like uterine. And
what do you mean you saw it very clearly?
So
how did
in
it
my
present
mind's
to you?
eye, it basically comes through as sometimes I'll see a map if we're talking about geographical locations. Sometimes I'll see a body. Sometimes I'll get a physical sensation that corresponds to where I'm supposed to talk about. Obviously, I don't have a uterus, but there are times where I'll get literally like a tug in my abdominal area. Wow. So it's very weird and very multifaceted. But she came to me and I told her about this problem and I said, you need to get this checked. And she kind of scoffed at me and said, Tyler, I just went to a gynecologist. I got checked. I'm all good, but thanks, And she kind of left, I think, a little tiffed that I had said that because why create false fear around something that probably isn't an issue? Got a call about 8 months later from her. She left a voicemail on my phone and I didn't pick up. And she said in the voicemail that she wanted to thank me because she had gone to the doctor shortly thereafter, only at the urging of her adult children. And when she went, she was actually found to have uterine cancer. It was in later stages. She was able to go into treatment immediately, and she ended up being fine, but they literally missed this cancer that was right in front of them the first time.
In later stages?
In later stages.
So 8 months prior to this, when she got examined, they didn't see it.
And you're 6 years old at the time, right?
I was already a teenager by that point. She was my first grade teacher who had known who I was.
First grade teacher.
Yeah. So she and I had gone way back. She knew me as a student. And then by the time I was, working as a teen, she had just been taking a stroll through our little towns downtown where I worked. And she walked into this bookstore where I did readings. And she said, oh, hey, Tyler, how are you? And we sat and I shared with her what I did. And that was really an extremely validating experience, I think, for both of us.
Now,
oh my God.
If you're doing a medical reading for someone and they have an HMO or they're not covered, will you not tell them?
I'm like, do we take insurance? Do we take insurance? No.
Do you really want to know?
I think knowledge is
This is
power.
going to cost you $400,000. That's funny.
Yeah, get the CT
Tyler's
scan.
sponsored by Anthem Blue Cross.
Can you imagine? Life insurance. That would be a good collab.
That is just incredible. That's amazing. And that in that moment, is it because you had a past relationship with her? Like, you can't walk up to somebody on the street and give them a medical read, can you?
I mean, it's happened. I don't love to focus on the medical just because it's such
course.
a sensitive area, but there have absolutely been times where I've sat with people even just briefly, like Alan Thicke, and got a very strong insistence around a particular health problem. And sometimes people are like, okay, I'll look into it, and other times they just shut it down. But I always tell people, if it comes through, what's the harm in at least taking into consideration? It's never to cause fear, only just to try to have prevention, and knowledge is power.
I'm scared to ask because I think he's a slight hypochondriac. Is Josh okay?
Fuck off. No.
I'm sensing hypochondria.
I'll walk out right now, dude. I walk out right now, Josh. Cut the record.
I'm sensing you
Cut
looking
the
very
record, producer
skinny.
Josh. Damn it. Okay, I'm ready. Go.
I'm sensing a. Oh no, you're a skinny legend.
Thank
That's what
you.
came through. Isn't that weird?
Thank you.
Just hit me
Cholesterol
out of nowhere.
227.
Amazing.
It's bad.
Sensing a skinny
I'm going to my
legend.
cardiologist Monday and an MRI on my quad.
There you go.
Shit, I forgot what I was going to ask. Keep talking, Ben. you made me
Sorry.
forget.
No, but it just, it's just,
I know what I was going to ask. What have you ever maybe thought about, like, I'm only thinking about the medical stuff, but like, you know, like there's a condition where people can see sounds. Have you heard of this?
Right, it's synesthesia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, where like sounds will literally present themselves in colors, right?
Yeah.
Or like how dogs sometimes can smell disease, right?
Sure.
Like there's like, do you ever think sometimes like maybe it's less or there's an aspect to it that's not just the clairvoyance or the indescribable that you have,
Sure.
but just like maybe a super sense, like maybe.
Yeah. It absolutely has crossed my mind as far as all different explanations, you know, physically based ones and spiritually based ones and kind of amalgamations of both. I sat with Dr. Drew and he put me up to neurofeedback and I sat there. I looked like an alien with this funny cap on my head and it was monitoring the electrical activity during a reading. And through that experience, we were able to find that my brain basically enters into something of a sleep state while I'm still awake. And he had no explanation for that. The scientist that was doing the study also had no explanation. I should have been in a deep state of snooze, but I was talking as I was scribbling, looking at the person in the eye, completely alert and awake. I have since developed a relationship with Gary Nolan at Stanford, and he's shown a lot of interest in psychic research. And it's kind of surprising that a lot of these institutions have, but Stanford particularly has, going back all the way to the 70s and 80s, a pretty deep interest in consciousness. There is something to be said, to your point, about mirror neurons. I don't know if you've ever heard of mirror neurons, but there are some people who are actually more capable of feeling or empathizing the physical pain of others. There was a very interesting documentary about a doctor who had this condition, and he often would feel, not in a psychic sense, but in essence feel through these mirror neurons that were heightened in him, often what these people were going through. And it wasn't pseudoscientific. It was completely just a very strange medical condition. So it very well may be both in some way.
Wow. And have you ever been wrong?
Absolutely. And I'm wrong all the time. You look, Michael Jordan misses a good portion of his free throws, but he's still Michael Jordan.
Totally.
Yeah.
But is there a fear about being wrong if you are giving someone a feeling about their medical?
Absolutely. Anything revolving around a person's health, their well-being, I have to be extremely conscientious of in the way that I deliver it. I view my job as that of like a mailman in the sense that I don't like write the letters. I just deliver the message. But how I deliver the message is my responsibility. I have to be tactful. I have to be considerate. I have to be mindful if there's cameras, you know, if their family watching and things like that. So I've learned, you know, if I know with my track record that something's coming through with insistence, I would rather share it and get it off my conscience than know that I didn't say it later on and then see something happen.
This episode of the Good Guys Podcast is brought to you by one of my favorite companies, Built Rewards. Listen up, renters, okay? Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? Of course you are. We're all feeling that way. It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. You're spending the money anyways, might as well do it. And that's where Built Rewards comes in. Okay, real talk, we've all been there. Feeling like we're burning cash. Yeah, we are. Too many rent checks, it's frustrating. Here's the deal. Built Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. Say goodbye to the money bonfire and hello to a renter's revolution with me in charge. And Built, of course. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built Rewards points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment, They're designed to meet your lifestyle, whatever works for you. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built Rewards has been constantly ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. So folks, earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/goodguys. That's JOINBILT.com/goodguys. Make sure to use our URL so that they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/goodguys to start earning points with your rent payments today. This episode of the Good Guys podcast is brought to you by Row Body. Folks, you've heard it from us. I'm on Ozempic, okay? I've taken these GLP-1s. I love them. I've lost a ton of weight on them, and I highly, highly, highly recommend them. That said, if you've heard of Ozempic or Wegovy, you've probably heard three things. They're effective, true, but they're expensive, also true, and they're hard to get, and that's where Row comes in. Because folks, Row can help you access prescription compounded GLP-1s with the same weight loss ingredients as brand name GLP-1s at a fraction of the cost. We love a fraction of the cost here at the Good Guys podcast. Row has compounded GLP-1s in stock right now. You can get it in 1 to 4 days if you qualify. Row members have support throughout the process. There's providers there that you can talk to. It's fantastic. And you can see the quality from the comfort of your own home. This means no scheduling a doctor's appointment. Who needs it? No commute to the doctor's office and no waiting rooms. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in 1 to 4 days. So folks, go to row.co. How easy is that? /good. Memberships start at just $99 for your first month. Medication costs are separate. That's ro.co/good. Go to row.com/safety for black box warning and full safety information. Compounded medication is not required to and does not receive FDA approval or review. RX only.
And how did this gift and when did this gift sort of make its way to Hollywood? Like, how did that sort of transition start? And do you enjoy doing readings for sort of celebrities, or would you prefer to do them for sort of the average Joe?
You know, people find this surprising, but like 90% of my readings are with non-celebrities. And about 90% are done for free. I do a lot of charity reads. I do reads for terminally ill people. I have a waiting list of like 700,000 people, and we go through and we pick them randomly, and often do these readings virtually and sometimes in person. So I feel so thankful for the opportunities I've been given, but my goal has always been to just further a conversation around what it means to be human, how we can get the most out of our time here, and how we can really live life to the fullest. And in being able to read certain celebrities, it allowed me to start those conversations and demographics of people that perhaps wouldn't ordinarily have them through these, means. And so like to be able to sit with different cultures and different backgrounds and introduce that into their followings was really special.
Who would you say is your favorite, if you can answer, celebrity read?
Favorite celebrity read was probably RuPaul, which is like the gayest answer in the world. But like, hey, Slay.
We love Ru.
But Ru's great.
Do we love Ru? Surprisingly tall, right?
Very tall, very tall, and very Amazonian. Fabulous. Well, that was so cathartic for me because this was somebody that I looked up to as a kid, being very different in a lot of ways. And I got to meet him. And not only that, but I was able to help give him a sense of peace around his dad's passing. His dad, in many ways was very cruel and would leave him, and not pick him up after he would agree to see him as a little boy. And so he felt a lot of neglect. His dad came through and acknowledged these specific instances that he knew to be true, and he apologized for them. And in that moment, I remember seeing RuPaul as a man and the look in his eye, and it just looked like a little boy sitting, hearing from his dad. And I know that he never expected to get that, and I certainly would have never dreamt of facilitating that. But after we left, he gave me a hug, and I just remember the thank you, and it was like a little kid. And it was so precious to be able to kind of, in a small interval, see that inner child maybe get a little bit of healing.
Well, you phrased it perfectly, so I have to ask. There's no way to double check. So you're talking to Ru, you're talking to someone who clearly has some trauma with a parent, which is very universal, right? Many of us have some version of that. even if perhaps you didn't get the apology from the father, or I don't know, or maybe they were like, no, I feel good about being a piece of shit,
Sure.
whatever it was. Does it behoove you to not to tell them? And why not, if you have the ability in which to give someone that relief, like you gave Rue,
Sure.
True or not, is it just better to just tell them what will give them peace?
I have to maintain the integrity of the messages I'm given. And it kind of goes back to that mailman analogy, right? I don't write the letters, I just deliver the message. So if I'm getting what I'm getting, I do have to make the conscious choice. Do I deliver it or do I not? Now, there are times where very difficult messages will come through, but generally the goal in a reading is just to leave someone better than I find them. I set all of these kind of parameters. I do a lot of prayer, a lot of kind of meditation in the days even leading up to big readings. And it gets me into a state where I really only want to connect to information that's going to be valuable. As a teenager, knew that my dear friend was going to die. And he had actually had brain cancer previously and went into remission. And I was so close to him and got this intuitive knowingness that not only would his cancer come back, but that he would pass away probably by the age of 18. And I didn't tell him that I had this feeling. I withdrew. I didn't, text him back. We lost touch. And he got re-diagnosed with brain cancer.
Why did you withdraw? Was it too hard to...
It's too painful to see him, too painful to face him knowing what was about or what would likely happen to him. And at the end of his life, he reached out to me and he said, Tyler, it's been years. I want to see you. And I messaged him back for the first time in a long time. And I said, I'd love to see you. Let's do it. And then he died. And I never got the chance. And in hindsight, that taught me about the importance of showing up for people while we have the chance. Because maybe I could have saved his life, but honestly, I don't think so. I don't think if I had told him your cancer is going to come back and it's going to be insidious and you're going to die at 18, I just don't know what good that would have done for him. So while there is a responsibility to deliver it, it's a bit of a heavy choice.
Well, just know that if you're friends with Tyler and he hasn't texted you back in a while, it's not looking good.
Yeah, we're backing up, and you should get a full body MRI. Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
No, my favorite thing is I'll call my friends randomly someday and sometimes and just say, hey, how you doing? And they'll go, why? And I'm like, I'm just checking in. Like, what the fuck? And they're like, you have to know something. What's wrong? Is my kidney gonna fall out?
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Oh, that's so funny.
People take it way seriously.
This episode of the Good Guys Podcast is brought to you by Caraway. Caraway, as you know, is the non-toxic cookware that we use in my house. I absolutely love it. Prepping for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, I use their knives. When I'm cooking, maybe sauteing, I use their pans. And the best part is that it brings me such peace of mind that their non-toxic cookware is free of dangerous chemicals. Who needs that? I don't need dangerous chemicals. You don't need dangerous chemicals. Again, I'm using their roasting pans to roast beautiful carrots. You should have seen these Japanese eggplants. So long, so fantastic. Put it at 400 for an hour. They came out, they were oozing. Ooh, baby, topped with a little tahina. Absolutely fantastic. Caraway is there for all of my cooking needs. And did I mention that they look incredibly chic? These colors, fantastic. Just check them out on their website. Caraway products are made without any toxic materials like PFAS, PTFE, PFOA, or other hard to pronounce chemicals. Easy cooking. It's ceramic, so naturally slick, and you need minimal oil, butter to get that consistency in the slide off the eggs. You're flipping them. It's great, non-stick, but without the chemicals. And well-loved, it's not just me, okay? Over 65,000 people have rated 5 stars about their Caraway kitchen. Now it's time for you to try it for yourself. So visit carawayhome.com/guys10 to see all our favorite products and take an additional 10% off your next purchase. This deal is exclusive for our listeners, that's right. So visit carawayhome.com/guys10 or use code GUYS10 at checkout. Caraway, non-toxic cookware made modern. This episode of the Good Guys Podcast is brought to you by Cook Unity. Now look, folks, as a celebrity chef, it happens to not only me, it happens to you. We get in a cooking rut. Some days we just don't want to cook. We've been cooking every meal because cooking food is fantastic. We love it. But Inevitably, you're going to get in that rut. And then what are you going to do? You're going to go and you're going to hop on one of these websites and you're going to order in dinner. And then you're going to be sad because it's not healthy, it's not delicious, it's not what you wanted, okay? We have goals, folks, and Cook Unity is here to help us with those. What if I told you that you could get food prepared by Michelin star chefs, top chefs in the world, curated these dishes, created these dishes, sent them straight to your door? Would that be something that might be of interest to you? How about you order a coconut wasabi cod with stir-fried quinoa? Okay, delivered right to your door. I got it. It was absolutely fantastic. Loved it and highly recommend it. Cook Unity, it just makes things simpler. And there are dozens of chefs offering a wide variety of cuisines. Select from over 350 meals or have them picked for you. Browse the menu options by protein if you'd like, chef, cuisine, or dietary need. You're sure to find food that you'll love. And it's easy and effortless. Choose from hundreds of meals prepared by award-winning chefs, or let them choose for you. The chefs that you see on TV and in five-star kitchens are the chefs that are making your Cook Unity meals. How amazing is that? So folks, go to cookunity.com/goodguys. Enter code GOODGUYS before checkout to receive 50% off, 50, your first week's order. That's 50% off your first week's order by using code GOODGUYS or going to cookunity.com/goodguys.
Well, to that point, I think I know something about you, like that it's hard for you don't drive, right?
I don't, yes.
Because you're like, will you talk about some of like and be honest, because having this gift, I'm sure comes with some challenges.
Yeah.
And like, what are the things like driving that you really can't do because you have this thing?
I think of driving as something I don't do, in part because I had a brain injury at the age of 18. I had a brain cyst and had brain surgery and was told I probably shouldn't drive. And then I got the all clear. But from that experience, I realized how much responsibility driving is. Driving in LA, if you know how intense and overwhelming that is. So I've been in a position where I just kind of let other people take on certain roles and it works. But, I don't socialize much. I don't drink. There are a number of things I don't do as a result of disability. From the drinking angle, I think it's very important that I not lose my wits. If I'm sitting with someone and I'm getting something, I would be very afraid that I would just start rambling like, your grandma's not proud of you, or like,
Right.
She says, go to hell.
Yeah.
Anything could come out, right? And I don't want to be boozing it up and have it turn to a different kind of show.
Someone cut Tyler off.
Right, exactly. Yes. So the spirits are all right, are popping.
Can you imagine you and a couple buzzballs? You could start a world war.
It could get intense. And MTV, I'm waiting for that call.
Oh my God. Now that's a good.
That would be a show.
That would
Just
be
get us
fun.
absolutely plastered, put a bunch of mediums in a room, and then release them.
Oh
Just
my
sort of
God.
like a band of
My God,
chihuahuas.
patent pending.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yes.
I'm in. Genius.
Wow. And when you had brain surgery when you were 18, were you worried you might lose your ability?
Totally. That was my number one concern.
I bet.
I thought if, the scalpel goes in and, they cut this open, they were unsure at the time if they were able to remove it or just aspirate it because it had filled with fluid. It was like a sac near my ventricles in the back of my brain. And so, I thought, well, what if I wake up and nothing comes through? And I remember kind of coming out of anesthesia and seeing the nurse looking at me and getting a feeling of someone being there. And I was just so relieved to have that feeling. I was like, oh, thank goodness. And then as time went on, information, started coming back.
And have you ever been kidnapped by bookies, for sports betting or any kind of...
That's funny that you say that. There are actually certain security precautions, that we have to kind of keep in mind in traveling to other countries with organized groups,
Really?
who do have worked with psychics, do see the benefit in them. And so, you don't want to be a target by any means.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm very conscientious, when I travel for security and just being mindful of...
You carry?
Yeah, packing.
So who's going to win the election?
That's the thing. Someone asked me about that yesterday as far as like future events. And I always say, like, I'm not Nostradamus. Like, for some reason, I don't see hurricanes. I don't generally see earthquakes. I don't see big acts of calamity, outcome of elections. Very often, my kind of strength just seems to be one-on-one with people. So kind of tuning into individual trajectories versus kind of like collective events. But that'd be a very dramatic and very cool ability I could just
And so is there like a medium group chat? Like, are you friends with other mediums, and do they have abilities that maybe you don't have, and do you have abilities that they don't have?
Uri
Like when you
Geller.
brought up,
yes. There's
like
some-
when you brought up like this idea of like seeing a catastrophe.
Yes.
Like, do you know anybody that can see a catastrophe?
There's a few people that I would go to if I were like, hey, I want to know, the upcoming catastrophe. Could you give me a sense? And then I'd go to all three. And if they gave the same answer, I'd say, hey, that's probably pretty compelling.
smart.
But I will say this, there are very talented people out there, and a lot of them you would never even know the name of. I have actually been in contact with a number of people who have demonstrated talents beyond my capability, people who are insanely talented. I had a man, I met a homeless man from the East Coast, Brooklyn, New York, claimed to have psychic abilities, claimed to work with the government. He was offering to show me what he could do. And he said that he could replicate an image from 3,000 miles away. That all it would take is for me to focus on a picture that I had in front of me at a designated time, and he would be able to recreate it.
Wasn't that a CIA program?
It was Project Stargate, yes. And he claimed to do this. And so I, at the last minute was like, okay, shoot, what picture am I going to pick? I almost thought of like printing out like boobs or just something really inappropriate because that would be hilarious. But I didn't. I picked a waterfall scene with mountains, and then I picked a second photo and put it right next to it. And it was of something that looked like the International Space Station. So two very different pictures. Within 5 minutes, he sends me a text of the pictures he had drawn from Brooklyn, New York. And on the paper, he's showing very clearly one picture. And the picture is of a waterfall, and he's pointing out where the mountains are in the picture and the bottom and where it's landing. And he has the proportions of it perfect. Then next to it, he draws a picture and is describing all these words about being in space above, and it looks technological, and he nailed it. There's no way this man could have guessed both of those pictures.
And then he just sends boobs and says, I'm that good.
Exactly. I'm just going to put just like PP at the bottom and see if he's really good, to see if he could get that.
Wow.
But I mean, it was mind-blowing and showed to me that consciousness is clearly very interconnected. That was the most unexplainable moment in my life, what that man did. And he did it for the cost of dog food for his little baby. So that's all he was willing to take for that demonstration.
Wow.
There's amazing people out there.
Do skeptics annoy you?
Skeptics don't annoy me because I think they are important. And I will say why. I think that there always needs to be a checks and balances. I would rather people be more pro-skeptic than accept and believe every single medium if I had it my way. I think it's important to use discernment. And I think that's how we get to the truth of matters, is by asking questions. And I think truth holds up. So we should be able to probe into things and ask about them. And I think there is a distinction between skepticism and just the cruelty of cynicism. To a hammer, everything is a nail. And to a cynic, every medium is a fraud.
Right.
So that creates a very different conversation than your average skeptical person who doesn't know what to make of it. Show me. Let's see it. That's very different, and I can work with that versus when people already are, writing me off as a morally bad person before they even have the chance to see what it is all about.
It's my sort of feeling about it is like my best friend's mom is Russian, immigrated here like in her 20s, right? And so she always believed in healers and different medical modalities and just like sort of the unorthodox approach to life. She didn't have a therapist, and she didn't have, her only counsel was her psychic.
Wow.
And she had she would talk a few times a month to this person, and she found them incredibly helpful in her life. And the way I kind of looked at it was like, maybe this woman that she talks to has an ability, or maybe she's just really good. She's like an unofficial, therapist.
Sure.
Right?
Playing a therapeutic role.
A therapeutic role, giving counsel. And like, to me, for that, I'm like, she's not stealing her money. She's offering a service. She feels better after.
Yes.
And, it was her entry point that this kind of person was who she felt comfortable talking to, and maybe not someone from academia.
Absolutely. And people would be surprised at the crossover. There are a lot of people in academia who are also mediums and practice psychic things on the side, which people find very interesting. I even had a therapist who was just that. She worked as a psychic and she had letters behind her name. So there is really something to be said, I think, of the fact that very often people are not going to a psychic as the first means of treatment. Usually by the time someone has seen a medium, they've exhausted every other resource in their lives. Right. And if you look at even psychotherapy, it is extremely subjective in its practices. There are so many fields of thought, even within psychology, particularly psychotherapy, as far as what works. And a lot of them are belief-based. And it's kind of the same thing in the sense that what may work for one may not work for another. But there really is no consensus in a lot of psychotherapy. But we still use it. Some people find it helpful, others find it useless. Some people find it depends on the modality. But I don't think alternative means of healing get enough credit. I think they are often berated by academic elitism. And that's my take.
Is there any validity in these like tarot card readings? Like how do you feel about like that? Yeah. Like whenever I see that, like I just like am always like you're really like reading me through a deck of cards. Right. Like that to me, yeah. I can't understand it.
It's so hard to understand.
And where did that come from?
Yeah. So basically all aspects of divination rely on randomness. All aspects. Okay. So whether you're pulling a card, back in the day they used to throw bones and see how they'd land. It basically is something you do when you've exhausted everything else and you say, I'm going to surrender, we're going to see what happens, let's just let it up to the universe. And within tarot specifically, it relies on the randomosity of 78 cards, that any card could be selected. So it relies on the principle of synchronicity, that a meaningful coincidence that you're setting the stage for this to happen in some way. And within the cards, there are pictures, and those pictures oftentimes symbolize concepts. Now, some people read tarot just purely from, the book, the interpretations of the pictures, but for certain intuitive people, these images almost act as little file folders that allow one to see something and then kind of flash on a series of other messages that then follow it. So they almost act as catalysts or means of kind of like bifurcating information, more as a visual aid. I think of it more as a tool than, this kind of magical thing. They are laminated pieces of paper, let's be real. But it's like a hammer in the sense that if you give a hammer to a contractor, he's going to do a lot more with it than if you give a hammer, to I was going to say Helen Keller, but she probably could have, she could have still figured it out. You get what I'm saying. Ben loves
Helen Keller.
So there you go. Go, Ben.
That's the episode title. We're giving a hammer to Helen Keller.
Sorry, she's been through enough.
Okay. We're Team Helen.
But
that's right.
But that's interesting. So they're more like prompts.
Yes.
And they're more for, I understand.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
There's actually a really,
but like the one in St. Mark's Place,
right.
like that's like charging $50 and like
or
a drunken
Miss
22-year-old.
Sure, you get what you pay for. In a lot of cases. Now,
do you not like them? Is there a better business bureau for psychics?
There should be a better business bureau for psychics.
Okay,
but it would be very difficult to enforce because it is a subjective-based experience. So
we'll get it going.
No, we know.
We
know. We'll run it.
You're out.
Enter. Put in a business plan in a chat GPT.
Yeah,
we'll be up and started before the spot's over.
Make it happen.
I'm in.
Collab.
What is that Uri Geller was a mentalist, right?
So Uri Geller's a very interesting example of the ambiguity of the paranormal, that it can be both.
Right.
So again, we always are going, is it real? Or are there elements of artifice? And very often it's both. And in his case, we find that he is a very skilled mentalist. He's also somebody who has told me what was right in front of me also from thousands of miles away. He's demonstrated so many weird feats just in our conversations. I had been talking to my mom about gun ownership about 5 minutes before I had texted him. And she was talking to me about, hey, maybe we should get some security. Wonder what gun, if we even got one, would we get? Uri Geller texts me a link out of nowhere and says, you should get this handgun. He just texted me out of nowhere.
And
a text. And he's in Israel, and I'm in California.
Wow.
It would be weird one time, but he's done it over and over and over again. There's something there. He clearly can connect to consciousness. He wouldn't be as wealthy and successful as he is if he couldn't, but he also sees the danger in being taken too seriously.
Whoa. I mean,
And there is a danger in being taken too seriously. And in many ways, his spoon bending, I feel, is a cloaking mechanism to the reality of what's really going on underneath paranormally. But it has to look just on the verge of ridiculousness so that it can be laughed off and he can continue living and doing his thing.
what if you're having like a romantic interlude? Are you like, Yuri, get out of here?
Yeah, no.
Like, you know,
He's bending my... Oh.
I'm trying to have an intimate moment, Yuri. Not now.
I know. He
Stop
could be in the
sending me
room with this.
pictures of Glocks.
Someone did a podcast not long ago and they started mentioning him. All the lights started shutting off and on. So you better be careful.
Oh my God.
You better not have soup tonight. You're going to start spinning it. It's just going to collapse.
I'm so glad I took my SSRI this morning.
Yeah. Good luck.
I feel balanced.
That's right.
What about the fame, and I'm sure you know, because obviously you're a student of this, the famous Houdini thing,
Yeah.
right? Where
Absolutely.
he, you know, passed away and he told his wife, I'm going to give you a code word so that if mediums or people are saying that
Yeah.
they're contacting me, if they don't know the code word,
Right.
then it'll prove that they're not.
Right. So that is a very, very commonly cited situation. And what I say to that is it's very common that people will have on pre-agreed code words.
Mm.
When I die, I'm going to bring this up. What I find when I sit down as a medium with someone and I'm bringing something through, it feels often that there are like 3,000 messages all just kind of right there. And it's like a stream. And sometimes the pieces of information that come through will be like, oh, your grandma, you know, had a blue wig that she wore for her 70th birthday. Okay, that's kind of inconsequential, but random, but correct. Then I'll pull another piece of information. It'll be, oh, the house got sold that your grandpa had, and it was on 4 acres, and your dad didn't like that very much. Okay, it's a little bit more important and more valuable to the reading. But my point is it doesn't come successively. There's so much out there. So sometimes to connect to like a keyword, people think of it as a back and forth conversation. It's more of the entirety of a bunch of messages is just kind of there to potentially be connected to, kind of almost tapped into like a radio station of sorts. When it comes to Houdini, you know, his role in spiritualism was huge. And what's fascinating in the books that I've read about his exploits were the interesting irony of the fraud that he tried to expose and the fact that he was often said to be willing to finagle the facts himself if it served his purpose. So he was really against this woman named Marjorie Crandon, who was a very famous medium. And Houdini's assistant years later claimed that Houdini had snuck a ruler in the cabinet that Marjorie was in and then brought out the ruler after and said, look, she's faking it. She's placed this here. And according to his own assistant, it was a setup. So the irony here, when we look at the facts of mediums, is that mediums certainly have a history and there is fraud in some cases. Equally, the skeptics have, in many times over the cases of years, demonstrated fraudulent facts to try to state their case.
Wow. And do you think that the more time you spend with someone, the more information you gather? Like, is it a time spent thing? And would you say that the people closest to you have the best read on, or it doesn't work like that?
The people closest to me, I actually have the hardest time reading because I have bias. I have a horse in the race. You know, I care about them. I'm invested in their lives and in their futures. It's a lot easier if I'm just reading a stranger, someone I have no real emotional connection with. I obviously wish everybody the best, but it's like reading myself. It becomes very hard because one's own fears kind of impede that intuitive mindset. It's kind of like logical versus creative.
Wow.
How does it work? How does it affect dating?
Dating for me was actually a lot easier than one would expect. You know, I felt like, of course, the sadness with losing my friend as a teenager, that was a very difficult initiation into a love life and mortality and death. But, you know, I've been in a relationship for 8 years. And, you know, I knew the moment I saw my partner that was going to be the person. I remember I said out loud, this is going to be the person I marry. And then I said, oh, F, like, because I was like, oh, you know, I can't believe this. This is nuts. I'm going to have to completely rework my life and it's going to be a whole thing. And I ended up, you know, meeting him. We, within a few weeks, you know, we're together and ended up moving in together. And it's been 8 years of the most fulfilling thing of my life. I mean, beyond career, beyond anything that I could ever achieve. The love that I'm able to exchange has been the most valuable. So, very thankful.
Beautiful.
Love.
It's a monologue. I better get brownie points later.
Yeah.
For this
right?
one. If they watch this,
Well-
yeah, put out. No.
Well, It might feel random, but on this show, we have a segment called Whaddaya Nuts.
Gotcha.
And it's people, places, and things. It's funny. Maybe there's something clairvoyant where you're actually like, oh, this woman is thinking something and it's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's people, places, and things, gripes with humanity. You're walking down the streets of Los Angeles and you see somebody and you're like, what are you, nuts? Like that is,
Okay.
That's nuts.
Gotcha.
So we'll give you a minute to think about it.
Okay.
Josh, you want me to go first?
Big or
You want to
small,
go first?
it can be anything just currently annoying you.
Currently
Take your
annoying.
time. We'll give you an example.
All right.
I'll go first, Ben. So for my
Okay.
my Whaddaya Nuts moment of the week, and this has happened to me, and it sticks in my craw every time. If I walk into a store, a coffee shop, an eatery, whatever, and you work there, this is what I don't want. Yo. Or, what's up, man? Nah. You work here. Hi, how are you? Thanks for coming in. Don't give me a what's up. I feel like you want to fight me. What are you, nuts? I'm in your... the other day I was at a coffee shop and he's like, what's up? I'm like, nothing now, friend. Nothing now. Don't you fucking what's up me, man. What are you, nuts? Just be...
Nuts.
And you don't have to
Nuts.
be like, hello, sir. But like, at least just be like, hey, welcome. What can I get you?
A
Simple.
little formality in the workplace, a little chivalry.
Yeah.
I'm with
Nuts.
you.
No fighting words. Exactly.
Absolutely nuts. So my Whaddaya Nuts moment is last Thursday. I went to this new restaurant. We spoke about it called Corner Store in the city. I went with 3 of my friends, delicious restaurant. And my friend and I are walking to the restroom. My friend he's behind me. He happens to fall down the stairs and he's totally fine, but he fell down the stairs. And the girl behind him, it's like, oh my God, are you okay? It sort of sparked this like quick romance. They were talking, exchanged numbers. A couple days go by. I get a text from my friend last night, a screenshot from the girl. The girl texts him, hey, what's up? You at Corner Store tonight? And he's like, no, why would I be at the restaurant tonight? What are you, nuts? Like, why? Like, restaurants aren't like bars. Restaurants aren't like typical hangout spots. Like, I went there on Thursday. Why would I be back there on Saturday night? Are you expecting to see me at the bathroom outside of the bathroom? Like, the whole thing to me was just hysterical. You at Corner Store tonight? No. Why would I be there tonight? I was just there 2 nights ago.
That is Whaddaya Nuts, but it also just makes me so glad that the 3 of us are in loving, wonderful relationships, because having to text people and be cutesy about it, be like, hey, are you at the restaurant where we met?
Yeah.
Sounds awful.
Awful.
It
But
does.
also, like, what are you nuts? Like, ask her to, like, hey, you want to meet up tonight? Not like, hey, do you happen to be at this restaurant that you were at 3 days ago? Like, of course not.
Yeah, I'm just getting some eggs.
Like, that's weird.
You know,
Yeah.
ran out of sugar.
Bruschetta.
Figured out some. Yeah, exactly. Well, what are your nuts? You know, I think my what are your nuts moment was actually happened about a week ago. I was walking past the store and a lady came out and she said, "Can you do me a big favor?" No, I can't do you a big favor. I don't even know you.
Love it.
So that's my what are you nuts? Just
I
don't
love
ask me.
it.
Can you? And next time someone asks you, "Can you do me a big favor?" Just say, "No."
Yeah.
I
don't
love
know
it.
you.
No, I can't.
My medium
I can't.
told me to tell you to get
Well, it is part of a well-balanced, healthy life. You know, to be able to
boundaries.
boundaries.
Plug your show one more time. Thank you for coming on the show. This was great.
Thank you. It was really insightful. You guys are so special. I've just had a really, really good time. I'm
glad.
so excited. We have a whole 8-week series over on Netflix that is live from the other side. It goes for a very long 45 minutes. It's very intense. Anything can happen. I never know who I'm reading. And I'm very nervous for Tuesday. So if you want to watch me faint live on TV, tune in.
Wow. Well, I'll be tuning in. And Tyler, this was an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for joining us, folks. If this episode wasn't 5 stars, what are you, nuts? Rate, review, and subscribe. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Watch us on Josh's YouTube. Share our clips, Instagram, TikTok, Mondays and Thursdays, folks. We'll see you next time.
And check out the new flavor from Spritz Society and the great Craig Conover. And check out my new show, Best Bite Wins, on Roku, October 18th.